6 in the morning, I am standing at my kitchen window with a mug of burnt coffee, watching fresh powder swallow our cul-de-sac like it's trying to erase it from the map. My phone won't stop buzzing, neighbors begging me to plow, parents panicking about the school bus, somebody's job on the line. And I'm just sitting there because our HOA says if I start my truck before 8 a.m. I get fined. My name's Mike Carter, and I moved into Maple Hollow, 30 houses tucked off a 2-lane road outside Ridgebury, Vermont, right after my divorce. It was supposed to be quiet, simple, the kind of place where people wave, shovel a little, and mind their own business. Back then, the Homeowners Association was basically a mailbox for dues. They kept the entrance sign from falling over, threw a block party once a year, and that was it. Low drama, low effort. Then Linda Price moved in 3 doors down. You know the type before you even learn their name. The stride is purposeful, the smile is tight, and everything they say sounds like it should end in per policy. Within months, she was at every meeting, on every committee, volunteering the way a shark volunteers to swim. By spring, Linda was the president. At first, I'll admit it wasn't all bad. She pushed for a neighborhood watch, got everyone to agree on matching mailbox styles, cleaned up the budget. People shrugged and said, "Fine, whatever." Then the rules started stacking up like unpaid bills. No holiday decorations before Thanksgiving, because standards. No cars parked on the street overnight, because appearance. No lawn work before 9 on weekends, because quiet hours. Every time somebody raised a hand to ask who requested any of this, Linda would smile and say, "Multiple residents have expressed concerns," like she was reading from a script. The snow rule didn't come from a meeting, it came from her driveway. See, Maple Hollow is private. The town plows the main roads, not ours. So for the last few winters, I'd been the guy with the plow attachment on my pickup clearing the loop before people had to leave. I never charged, never asked for thanks. Honestly, I just liked knowing my neighbors could get to work and the school bus wouldn't get stranded. One morning after the first real snowfall, I'm finishing up around 7. I'm making my last pass, thinking about nothing more serious than whether I should stop for donuts. And Linda storms out in a bathrobe and boots, marching straight at my truck like I personally insulted her ancestors. She bangs on my window hard. I roll it down, expecting maybe a good morning or even a grudging nod. Instead she goes, "What do you think you're doing?" I blink. Plowing. Same as I always do. "It's 7 in the morning, she snaps. "People are trying to sleep." I actually look around because it's such a weird thing to say. Half the houses have lights on. A couple neighbors are already warming up their cars. A guy across the street gives me a little wave like, "Please keep going." "Linda, I say the bus comes at 7:45. People need to get out." "That's not the point." She says like she's delivering a closing argument. "The point is excessive noise during quiet hours. The board has discussed this. We're implementing a new rule. No snow removal equipment before 8 a.m. I just stare at her. You can't be serious. If I wait until 8, the bus is stuck and half the neighborhood is late. Then people can wake up earlier and shovel," she says, and turns back toward her house like she just solved winter. 3 days later, a notice shows up in every mailbox on official HOA letterhead. It bans gas-powered equipment before 8 a.m. and after 8 p.m. Lawn mowers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, and because Linda had circled it in her mind with a red marker, snow plows. First violation, $250. Second, $500. Potential legal action for repeat offenders. I hosted a quick get-together at my place that week. 15 neighbors crammed into my living room, cups of coffee in hand, all wearing that same expression like, "This can't be real." One guy asked, "Can she actually enforce this?" Another neighbor, Ethan Brooks' lawyer, quiet, annoyingly calm, said, "If it's in the covenants, the board has broad authority. The question is whether it's reasonable." Reasonable, someone echoed like the word tasted bad. We drafted a petition. 23 households signed. We sent it in polite, factual direct. Linda replied with 2 lines, "The board has thoroughly discussed the matter. The rule will stand. Your concerns are noted for future discussion." Future discussion. It was early December in Vermont. The first little snowfall after that was on a Saturday. 3 inches. No one cared. People slept in. I plowed at 8. And it almost felt normal, like maybe this was just a stupid bump we'd laugh about later. Then the forecast started shouting about a nor'easter, 12 to 18 inches overnight right into a Wednesday morning. School day, work day, the kind of storm that doesn't ask permission. I went to bed Tuesday night watching snow stack up on my porch railing like cake frosting. My alarm went off at 5 a.m., and when I looked outside, the street wasn't a street anymore. It was a blank white field. I got dressed, walked out to my truck, started the engine, and sat there with my hands on the wheel, watching the clock glow 5:15. I could have cleared the entire loop in 45 minutes. Easy. No drama, no chaos. But I could also see the email from Linda in my head. Already. Violation notice and the fine, and the next one, and the board taking action. I'd watched people like her turn small conflicts into full-time hobbies. I didn't have the energy to get dragged into that machine. And for a few seconds I felt something I hate feeling, cornered, like no matter what I did I was going to pay for it. I shut the truck off. I walked back inside, sat down, and typed the same message over and over as the texts started coming in. Mike, you plowing this morning? The road's buried. I have to be at the hospital by 6:30. My kid's bus, please. This is an emergency. I replied, HOA rule says no plowing before 8 o'clock. I'll be out at 8 o'clock. The responses came back angry, and immediate people who'd been friendly for years suddenly talking to me like I'd betrayed them. One neighbor called me. He sounded exhausted, scared, like his whole day was about to collapse. Man, he said, I get it. But I can't be late again. I'm already on thin ice at work. I stared at the snow pouring down outside my window. I tried. We signed the petition. She didn't listen. So you're just gonna sit there? I didn't have a good answer that sounded nice. The honest one was ugly. If everyone finally feels what this rule does, maybe they'll stop treating it like a quirky inconvenience and start treating it like a threat. By 7 o'clock, I could hear scraping outside, metal shovels biting into packed snow engines, whining, somebody yelling when their tires spun out. A sedan made it 15 feet and got stuck sideways like a fallen domino. At 7:30, the school bus tried to turn in. I heard the rumble, the strain, then that unmistakable hiss as it stopped dead. Hazard lights started blinking at the entrance like a warning beacon. At 7:40, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, 5 neighbors were on my porch in bulky coats and pure frustration. The bus is stuck, one of them snapped. My kids are going to miss school. I'm stuck in the street, another said, voice shaking. I can't miss my meeting. I checked my watch mostly to keep my face calm. It's 7:40, 20 minutes. Are you kidding me? Someone barked. I'm following the rule, I said, steady. The one Linda wrote, the one she insisted on. If you want it changed, call her. We've been calling her, another neighbor said, and you could hear the disbelief. She's not answering. Well, I said, unable to stop the edge in my voice, I guess she's enjoying those peaceful morning hours. They didn't like that. But they also didn't have anything to argue with. They left my porch pulling out phones, dialing, texting, emailing, like they could brute force her awake. At 7:55, Linda's garage door opened. Of course it did. She backed her white SUV out like she was making a grand entrance. Her driveway magically clear because she'd paid a service to shovel just hers. She eased toward the street, turned, and immediately got stuck in the same churned-up pile where 2 other cars were already stranded. Linda stepped out in heeled boots, stared at the buried road like it had personally offended her, and then said the words that made my jaw tighten. This is unacceptable, she announced. Why has no one plowed? A neighbor, Ethan, standing by his mailbox with a shovel like it was a prop, called out, because you banned it before 8. Linda waved a hand like that didn't apply to her reality. This is an emergency. Obviously the rule doesn't apply during emergencies. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He just lifted the printed notice and said, show me the emergency exception. Linda's face did this slow shift, pale to red, like her brain was trying to find a loophole that wasn't there. I looked at my watch again. 8 o'clock on the dot. Oh, I said, loud enough for the little crowd forming on the street to hear, look at that. It's 8. Guess I can help now. I took my time walking to my truck. I scraped my windshield even though it didn't need it. I climbed in, started the engine, and felt every pair of eyes on me. Relief, anger, embarrassment, all tangled together. The plow dropped with the dull clunk, and I started at the far end, pushing that heavy snow aside in slow, clean passes. It was deeper than usual, wet and stubborn, and it took almost an hour to open the loop and reach the entrance where the bus sat like a stranded ship. The driver leaned out her window, tired but calm. This one's gonna be a story, she said. Sorry, I told her. She tilted her head toward Linda, still standing by her stuck SUV, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing like she could argue the snow into moving. Honey, this isn't your mess. That night, the neighborhood erupted, not at me, at Linda. People who'd never cared about HOA politics were suddenly quoting bylaws in the group chat like it was scripture. By Friday, we packed the clubhouse. Every house showed up. Folks stood in the back because we ran out of chairs. Ethan stepped up, held a legal pad, and read the line that mattered: the board can create rules only if they're reasonable and for the safety and benefit of residents. Then he looked right at Linda. Wednesday morning was a safety issue. Work missed, kids stranded, vehicles blocking the road, all avoidable. Linda leaned into the microphone like she still controlled the room. I received multiple complaints about early morning noise. From who? Someone yelled. Confidential, she snapped. Ethan didn't smile. Then we proceed with a recall petition. Linda tried to argue quorum, tried to argue procedure, tried to argue authority. It didn't matter. Clipboards moved through the crowd like a current. Pens scratched paper. People who'd never raised their voice in their lives signed their names with shaking hands. 2 weeks later, the recall vote came back unanimous. 30 out of 30. Linda stood up, stiff eyes glassy with rage, and said, "You'll regret this when property values drop." Then she grabbed her purse and walked out like she was firing us. The door shut behind her, and the air in the room changed heavy, quiet, final. Sometimes the only way to beat a power trip is to stop absorbing it.